weak beta men pressured vulnerable women to undergo a procedure that will haunt the women for the rest of their lives. The selfishness of men put women in the untenable position to choose to terminate their pregnancies. Welcome back to the Biblical Conservative channel. I appreciate all the comments, the likes, the shares. Please share this with your friends, which making sure that people are aware that there is a voice of the biblical conservative to come against all this anti-God, anti-black, anti-human, all of this secular humanistic ideology, this Marxist communist ideology that is here, that is permeating, that is festering in this land, that's looking to destroy it. And we're coming against that. We're taking the weapons of our warfare and applying them to the spiritual battle. Last week, there was a historic victory for those who love life, for those who stand on true biblical principles, those who believe the Bible as the word of God and believe that God is the purveyor of life, in the sanctity of life, and the importance of life. But you know what? There is this group called Jane's Revenge that has promised a summer of rage to protest the de-federalization of abortion. This group plans to carry out acts of peaceful protesting at pregnancy resource centers, synagogues, churches, and other pro-life institutions. When I look at all the anger and vitriol that is coming from the left side of the ledger, I am disheartened and appalled. I'm disheartened because we have degraded to a point in this country where the life of our most precious innocents, the unborn, are treated less than animals. Remember Michael Vick? Do you remember all the uproar that occurred when he was convicted of dogfighting? You would have thought that he was the next iteration of Jim Jones. Remember Jim Jones, Jonestown, when all those people lost their lives because they were following Jim Jones? You would have thought Michael Vick was just as sick and evil as he was. All the uproar around it. But strangely, as a nation, we have committed far more atrocities through the legalization of murder than Michael Vick ever did. But instead of knowing the truth and following it, we have a number of people that want to codify murder. The current president wants to abolish the filibuster so he can codify murder. That's what abortion is.
Executive actions are you considering in response to the Roe ruling? And would you declare a public health emergency as several Democrats are calling on you to do?
I'll be happy to go in detail with you on that. I'm having a meeting with a group of governors when I get home on Friday, and I'll have announcements to make then. But the first and foremost thing we should do is make it clear how outrageous this decision was and how much it impacts not just on a woman's right to choose, which is a critical piece, but on privacy generally. And so I'm going to be talking to the governors as to what actions they think I should be taking as well. And but the most important thing to be clear about is we have to change. I believe we have to codify Roe v. Wade in the law, and the way to do that is to make sure the Congress votes to do that. And if the filibuster gets in the way, it's like voting rights. It should be, we provide an exception for this, require an exception to the filibuster for this action to deal with the Supreme Court decision.
How did we get here? I believe it started when we decided as a nation and culture that we don't need to follow God or his playbook. We're good. We're good. We don't need God. We're smart enough to handle life ourselves. That opened the door to the sexual revolution, which introduced the cottage industry of human objectification. Objectification has always been in the human heart. It's always been there. Humans have a tendency to view other humans as property. Remember slavery? It's always been there. Yet, this took on a different connotation in this sense. From Playboy to Hustle to Two Live Crew to sex tapes, women were no longer viewed as precious vessels to be protected. Oh no, they were objects. On the contrary, they were now useful tools that men with power could use and discard at their own discretion. Use them and abuse them. If the entanglement led to a conception of a child, there was now a get out of jail free card: abortion. Weak beta men pressured vulnerable women to undergo a procedure that will haunt the women for the rest of their lives. The selfishness of men put women in the untenable position to choose to terminate their pregnancies. As the years progressed, women realized that the only way to regain some sense of balance was to turn the tables. Women began to objectify men and use their tactics against them. If the hookup led to a baby, oh well, abort it. Now the child has become objectified. You see the progression? The party that could have stopped it from the beginning were men. If men would have taken their rightful place, if they would honor their roles in the eyes of God and operated from that position, then there would not have been a need for a woman to want an abortion, because there would have been a man there who honored God and honored himself and honored that woman and would have promised that woman and gave that woman assurance that he would have been there to take care of her, to provide for her. Alas, just like Adam, most men abdicated their roles. So naturally, women vacated their roles, and it left the most vulnerable, children, exposed. It has created a generation of victims. But we are not victims. We are empowered for greatness. Men, when you see the foolishness that Jane's Revenge is looking to carry out this summer, recognize this is the fruit of the many years of inaction and selfishness coming home to roost.
America's chickens are coming home to roost.
President Obama's old pastor, Jeremiah Wright, the chickens are coming home to roost. What we're seeing with this uproar and outrage as a result of the de-federalization of abortion, the recognition that the life of the unborn has rights. When we see this uproar, when we see where we are as a nation and as a culture, I point the finger at men. Because men put women in these situations to where they have to choose between a baby that's growing inside of them or terminating that or their future, because they do not believe that a man will be there and honor his word and provide for the child that he helped to conceive. And that is what has led to this. In addition to the rejection and the outright turning our back on God. You combine those two things together and this is what you get. You get abortions made out of convenience. You get terminated pregnancies made out of convenience, elective abortions. But we are not victims. We are empowered for greatness. We must, as men, take our responsibilities, honor our families, honor our wives, honor our women, and stand up and make sure that we are fulfilling the role that God has placed for us. Because when we place things in proper perspective, in proper order, God, man, woman, child, things flow better, society functions better, and the communities thrive. And we can get back to there because we are not victims. We are not victims. We got to stop letting the media, stop letting the progressives, stop letting the Marxists convince us that the alternative to biblical principles is better. We can't let Black Lives Matter convince us that as a community, not having fathers in the home, not having a nuclear family is better. We've seen the results of that. It's time to turn that around. We are not victims. We are empowered for greatness. Thank you so much for liking your comments and subscribing to the channel. Please share this with your friends. Smash that like button. Smash the subscription bell. Share this with everybody you know. We're trying to make sure people understand that they're not victims, that they are empowered for greatness, and all this stuff that's out here that's telling them otherwise is false and will not benefit them in the end. So please, I appreciate that. Share that.